All right, welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I'm your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 131, recording on Monday, November 24th. It never stops. In Vikings land, the news, the mayhem, the absurdity of it all never seems to stop. And so we will be talking about everything today, talking about J.J. McCarthy, talk a little bit about Max Brosmer. And then I recorded an episode of the Vikings Update Show on the Talk North podcast network with John Krasinski, my colleague at The Athletic, earlier this morning. Going to play that after I give some thoughts on where the Vikings are with the quarterback situation. John did the leading of that podcast, so I'll be more in the reporter analyst seat, but it was a good conversation coming off of Sunday's Packers loss that I think is relevant, necessary, etc. So going to have that on the back end of this podcast after I get to some thoughts. First and foremost, if you're new here and watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate that. There's a little red box in the corner. You just hover over it and press it. And it's free for you, but it helps us out. And we've had a lot of fun growing this channel, even in seasons like these that are agonizing for all of us. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify or iHeart, you can rate and review and follow. You hit those little stars. It helps us out too. And then the show is presented by First Resource Bank. If you don't know about the community bank, it's a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area. They've got branches all over the place, and it's run by really, really good people. Tim Siegley, Aaron Siegley, and Charlie Anderson. They've got branches all over the place, and their online banking platform is great, so please go check out First Resource Bank. And then the show is also sponsored by Unreal, the locally owned clothing brand, which I will be bringing south to me to Alabama to rep it back home as I enjoy some Thanksgiving with the family before flying to Seattle to watch probably likely Max Brosmer. And that was the news of the day. I mean, this played out the way that it seemed to play out way too many times at this point, where Kevin O'Connell gets to the podium for his Monday after game press conference, and he runs through the injury report, and at the very end, he has kind of a tone change of voice. And today, it was J.J. McCarthy. I'm paraphrasing him. J.J. McCarthy on the travel home last night expressed some symptoms to the training staff of a head injury, and after tests, he was placed in the concussion protocol, which leaves his starting for this upcoming weekend against Sam Darnold's Seattle Seahawks in jeopardy, in doubt. I'll just say, and this is conjecture, speculation, but the Vikings with JJ specifically have been very conservative, cautious, taking the long-term view, and then rarely in Kevin O'Connell's time here has a player entered the protocol and then played the next week. It's happened. I could probably come up with a handful of examples, but it is definitely rare. And so my mind goes directly to Max Brosmer, the undrafted rookie from Minnesota, who we've talked a lot about on this podcast, probably getting a start against a defense that I have yet to watch on film, but I know their front is menacing. I know Mike Macdonald, their head coach and defensive play caller, does as good of a job mixing it up as anybody. So it's as tough of a test for your first test. I mean, it's like entering high school and you're just throwing the ACT right off the bat. You got no prep. You're just like blindsided with it. That's really what this feels like. But as far as J.J. McCarthy, first of all, Kevin O'Connell couldn't pinpoint the specific play that the concussion symptoms may have occurred. He didn't specify the specific play, but if you go back, there is a play with like 5 minutes and a second left in the fourth quarter where J.J. McCarthy drops back, and there's some deep downfield concepts, but then there's also T.J. Hawkinson leaking out like a chip block right to the left of the line of scrimmage, and J.J. McCarthy just has to progress and get the ball down to T.J. Hawkinson. He didn't do that, and he didn't throw the football away, and so he's trying to make a play. Believe this was on a first down. I'm going to check that real quick. Yeah, 1st and 10. Team is trailing 23-6, and he's trying to make a play. He's scrambling to the left side, and Isaiah McDuffie, a massive linebacker for the Packers, just clobbers him and pounds him into the grass, and J.J. McCarthy is laying on his back on the ground for motionless for a couple seconds. And you can see on the sideline on film, Josh McCown, the quarterback coach, and Brian Angelico, the tight ends coach, they enter the film picture seemingly looking concerned for J.J. McCarthy after the hit, understandably. And then T.J. Hockenson pulls him up, and J.J. McCarthy's right back into the huddle. It wasn't flagged at the time by the training staff for him to be checked out. It obviously wasn't flagged either by the independent neurologists who are supposed to be looking out for these types of things. But one of the obvious questions you guys are and I'm sure it's the narrative on social media or what have you of soft benching or whatever. You can go back and watch this play and watch J.J. McCarthy's reaction to the hit and laying motionless on the turf. And it's been a reflection of just too often over the last 3 games, J.J. McCarthy is putting himself in position not only to struggle from a performance standpoint, but there have been a lot of instances where he's taking hits or putting himself in position with violent climbs in the pocket where he's hitting his hand on a teammate's helmet. He just put himself in too many positions to struggle on the field and place himself in spots where an injury is possible. And so that's why, it's easy, I guess, now with hindsight to say this, knowing that Max Brosmer could be starting this weekend. But frankly, going back to week 4, believe it was week 4 in London at Tottenham Hotspur when Carson Wentz tore his labrum and continued to play in the game. It's just felt for a long time this season an inevitability would probably come where Max Brosmer is playing or starting in a game this season. I've just had that feeling now. For a long time. And again, very easy for me, know-it-all sports writer, journalist guy to say that in hindsight. But I could probably send show text messages I've sent to friends for months now, just obviously with Carson Wentz navigating the injuries that he did. And then J.J. McCarthy coming back and again, both, putting himself in position where an injury is possible given his injury history. It's been too much. If an injury didn't occur, I did not expect or think that the Vikings would bench J.J. McCarthy unless it got to such a point at which I never expected a benching. And again, to be very clear, I don't view this as such either. You can go back and rewatch the play. It just felt like the Vikings desperately need to know what they have in him and where he's at in his development for the decision-making moving forward. And so, as for Max Brosmer, you guys probably have a lot of questions. I've listened to shows over the last couple of weeks nationally where his name gets brought up, whether it's Bill Simmons and Cousin Sal, whether it's Mina or Dominique Foxworth, a lot of people, Bill Barnwell, a lot of people I respect. But I will say this. From the time Max Brosmer entered this building, it's been all positive, and that's both public comments made by Kevin O'Connell, but that's also private conversations I've had with a lot of people internally about what they feel he can do and he can be. When you go undrafted, it's obviously a reflection that he does not have, a laser beam of an arm. And it's obviously not a perfect canvas to work on, again, which is why he went undrafted. But I'll never forget. I had a conversation in August with Eric Galco, who runs the East West Shrine Game, which is one of the offseason big pre-draft events of evaluating players. And Eric was pretty frank at the time. Again, this was August. He viewed Max as a player who fit the prototype similar to Brock Purdy, where it's processing, it's ability to trust the offense, it's the ability to make throws and be accurate. It's a little bit of athleticism, and that's been a guy like his perspective for a long time. And then again, I view that as one thing, but then when I'm hearing positives within the building, like I've heard for some time now, it's always been intriguing to think like what Max would look like in game. I mean, the processing ability on the field was impressive in training camp. The speed of this game against the Seahawks and this defense, if Max is indeed the guy, it's going to be vastly different from anything he's ever seen. And then, I mean, it's going to, the front's probably going to test his ability to play off platform and with congestion in the pocket and all that. But if he does indeed play, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to me to see how it looks. If he sinks, I mean, then it's probably, I mean, this is what it's been for weeks now. And if he swims, then the conversation will obviously become interesting as the Vikings move forward the rest of the way. I mean, if I had to peg it, and this is just something that I believe, like, I don't think, and this could be proven very well wrong. Like, I don't think Max Brosmer is going to look crazy out of place playing in an NFL game Sunday in Seattle against the Seahawks if he is indeed starting. That's just kind of what I believe after watching him every day in training camp, after listening to people talk about him behind the scenes, after monitoring kind of, the way he goes about a locker room and his personality and all that stuff. So that's just kind of my prediction with it really early in the week without watching the Seahawks defense. And that's kind of my take on the situation with where it is. I mean, I asked Kevin O'Connell about just JJ potentially missing another game and more practice time. And Kevin said, it's not ideal, just like for much of JJ's journey thus far, it's been not ideal. And that's just where it is. Sunday in Green Bay was brutal. And I don't need to tell you guys, you watch the second half and there's only so much the film and the data can peel back more than what you saw with the naked eye. So not really much more for me to add there. Any questions you have, I would say you'll probably find some answers at The Athletic with stories that I'm doing this week. And if there's anything beyond that, toss them at me on social media at Alec Lewis on Twitter, at Alec Lewis Show for the show's accounts in the comment section below. I'm here to answer anything you got. That's part of why I do this and why it's as fun as it's been. Again, even through seasons that grind on you. That's and not just grind on me, grind on really a lot of people, obviously, around this team. So, without further ado, here's the conversation I had Monday morning before the news of J.J. McCarthy's entering the concussion protocol was public. Here's what John and I talked about coming out of Sunday's game against the Green Bay Packers. Yeah.
Welcome to the Viking Update Show, everyone. It is presented by Onyx Hunt. We are coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios, but we are really coming to you from the dregs of the NFC North Division. We are coming to you from the sunken place, whatever pit of despair you want to ascribe to the Minnesota Vikings situation right now. We're in it, and we are deep in it. The Thanksgiving table is going to be a little lean. And we're going to just kind of go all the way in. I think the best way to do this is to embrace it, is to take it head on, and maybe have a little bit of therapy, as our friend Paul Allen says on the Davenport of Love. And we need a lot of that right now. And I am John Krasinski from The Athletic. Jim Suhan, the normal host of the Viking Update Show, is not here this week, but we are joined delightedly by my athletic compatriot Alec Lewis. Once again, we are in the Aquarius Home Services Studios. We are brought to you by Twill, by Scott Dayton, by Onyx Hunt, by Clamshell Beach Resort, and the Minnesota Lottery. And we will get to all of your questions, all of your worries, all of your concerns here in just a minute, right after we hear from sponsors to start the Viking Update Show. All right, Alec, you're fresh off, coming back from the road, from Lambeau Field, from storied Lambeau Field. Why don't you just kind of lay out the scene for us a little bit here, the aftermath of really kind of one of the uglier matchups in this long rivalry, and just what was kind of the mood in the locker room coming off of such a difficult performance?
Yeah, it was a long drive home, John, thinking about what that it was 4 hours of replaying plays, conversations in my mind of what that was. But the scene in the locker room after, I mean, you first walk in there, and you probably know this, but the Green Bay locker room is retro. It's packed in there. It's like a high school locker room in the middle of Minnesota, like that people listening to this would know and know well. And one of the first people you see is J.J. McCarthy just sitting at his chair, staring directly into his locker, not saying anything, and just looked, beaten down really, and frustrated and answerless. And it felt like that was the theme kind of everywhere. Brian O'Neill talked, and he talked about needing urgency, but we've heard that before. Josh Metellus was sorting through things over on the other side of the locker room, and then Justin Jefferson eventually talked. And the frustration was, I in Green Bay over the years, Justin has had some interesting moments. I can remember the game a few years ago where Jair Alexander grittied over the top of him, and Justin after the game was really, really frustrated. But this was as just, emotionless as his face looked, just tired of talking about the same things, which he essentially said. And I think that was the theme. It's like, have talked about a lot of the same things, have, talked about needing to be more urgent, about not turning the ball over, about not having penalties, not having negatives. And these things continue to pop up regardless of having the offensive line fully healthy, like everyone was excited about. It's just a lot of the same issues. I texted you during the game. The script has just been the same. The scene of where the movie is being shot changes. And so, yeah, the frustration, the exhaustion, the annoyance over it all was evident for sure after that game in the locker room.
Yeah, I think, Alec, this feels like, I wasn't there, but I certainly read your piece and a lot of the coverage of the game afterward. It feels like earlier on there's discussion about urgency, about cleaning up mistakes, about being better around JJ, about all of these things. But now it's sort of giving way to, I wonder if there's a way to fix this right now. Where do you go? Because you give the same answers every week, and every week, outside of the Detroit game and just a couple of other instances so far this season, the same things are coming. And so then it becomes a question of, is this team capable right now of fixing everything that needs to be fixed? And maybe there is a reluctant kind of reality setting in that, this ain't getting better, and there is no corner to be turned with this group right now, and maybe there's a little more despair or hopelessness setting in there.
Yeah, without question, I think that's kind of where they are. And the schedule is part of it. You're about to go on the road to face the Seattle Seahawks, which have one of the best and most diverse defenses in the NFL, one of the best fronts in the NFL. You're sorting through Christian Darrisaw, left the game in the second half. Donovan Jackson tried to push through, and he didn't return. So what are their statuses against a defensive front that's even more dominant than Green Bay's? And then you've got another matchup with Green Bay. You've got another matchup with Detroit. And it's just, Dallas just beat the Eagles, and they look like an energized team. So it does feel like from a 2025 Vikings season standpoint, reality has in many ways set in that the playoffs are not likely. And then you transition to the conversation of, what is J.J. McCarthy's development going to look like on a week-to-week basis? And thus far, it doesn't feel like he's taking obvious, meaningful, observational steps forward on a week-to-week basis. And it's interesting. I felt like in that game, John, they called the game as conservative as I've ever seen Kevin O'Connell call a game. in his time here, specifically with all the starters at play. I mean, two of the first four passes were screen passes. JJ only threw past the sticks 5 times in the game. Kevin O'Connell essentially said the formula for us to win right now is to run the football, not have any negatives, and not put the ball in harm's way through the air. And that's just not a sustainable path to win in the NFL. So yeah, it definitely feels like with this team, reality sets in, and then obviously it's hard not to drift more to the future and beyond with this situation. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's tough when you enter a season, you spend $344 million in cash on the roster, most of any team in the NFL. Expectations were not poured cold water on the fact that this team could make the playoffs. And so, yeah, the disappointment, the frustration is natural, seemingly at this point, feels like.
Yeah, let's just dive into McCarthy now. I think you and I both have been viewing this very pragmatically for most of the season in terms of, hey, he is a young guy. He needs time. He's got to just kind of get his legs underneath him, figure things out. We saw, end of Chicago, both Chicago games, even the Detroit game, I thought he handled well. And so you're looking at it and you're thinking, okay, is it great? No, it's not great. Is there a real good chance of things eventually coming out of it? Yeah, there's a chance of it. And I, the previous couple of weeks, I had been kind of looking at this team and saying, yes, McCarthy is not where he needs to be, but they also need to be better around him defensively, offensive line, receivers got to catch the ball, no penalties, all of these different things. I really do want to get into all those aspects again because I think they were real elements of the Packers' loss. But this feels like that saying of, you have a lot of problems until you have a health problem, then you have one problem. And, this team has a lot of problems, but then you have a quarterback problem, and that's your one problem. And it's just hard right now watching him play. And again, as a fan of him in college and just thinking that, yes, there is a pathway for him, it is getting harder to look at the way that he is handling things, the way that he's airmailing passes, the conservative nature with which the Vikings are calling the game and say, yes, there are things building toward him eventually really taking a hold of this job.
Yeah, I mean, the second interception is the one that was really jarring to me in the moment. And, I mean, at that point, maybe the game spiraled out of control, so he's trying to make a play. Like, there's ways probably to understand what that throw was. But, it was a clear-out route that he tries to throw over the top and sails it by multiple feet. It's really, that concept is typically you're throwing the in-breaking route. You're never really trying to throw that. So the decision was murky, and then the throw was, not accurate. And that's the two things thus far through 6 starts that have been concerning. Is like it doesn't feel like the speed of the game, he's acclimated to how quick he needs to make decisions, and then at times how calm he needs to be to wait to make the correct decision. So, that's its own conversation, and you hope that more time and more reps can get him to a place at which he does, center in on what the timing of the NFL is. But then the other conversation, and I wrote this, but the last few weeks have felt like listening to Kevin O'Connell and J.J. McCarthy, like I'm taking a quarterback course, in college. That's how it feels, where they're talking about the most minutia mechanics information as you really can find publicly in the NFL. And the inaccuracies, there was a throw in the first half where Justin Jefferson's kind of running a crossing route to the left, and J.J. McCarthy, there was some pressure, and he kind of threw it, feet outside of where Justin Jefferson could maybe make the catch. And so those two aspects of his play remain such moving targets to where it's difficult. Now, it is hard to separate the protection, the design, and all of that with his play. And I'm never going to be one through 6 games to write anybody off at any position. I just think that is faulty, foolish. But it does feel like right now he's having to work through so much mentally, physically, emotionally, and you can imagine what it must be like. I mean, you can't really, but you can try to empathize with what it would be like to be in his head, where the narrative swirling, mechanically that you have to be a certain place, you got to enter the game calm. There's just so much right now that you have to imagine he's sorting through, and it just can't. That's just not a sustainable place to be with how good opponents are in this league. So it has been, the way you started that is I'm in full agreement. Like, it's been hard to watch because you feel for a dude who really wants it badly.
Yeah, for sure. And the problem that we're getting to right now is that, like, I'll even go back to Teddy Bridgewater when he first got here. He played well enough, I would say, to foster optimism. And I was through the whole thing was like, look, Vikings fans, you're getting way too hyped for this guy. Like, he is, he's doing fine, but let's not, like, just crown him as the next great franchise quarterback when, all of his numbers were very mediocre, but he had a really good leadership. He had a good handle of the locker room, and it looked like he was starting to figure things out and go forward. And then the horrific injury happens, but he was just okay. And Vikings fans were so excited and just like, okay, we've got our guy, we're going forward. And the problem with JJ is that for the vast majority of these 6 games, it's not that he has been just okay. It's not that he has been bad. It's been historically bad.
Yeah, right.
And so that's where I start to worry, is that when you are 800th out of 817 quarterbacks in these certain search parameters that you're putting up and things like that, that is a level of ineptitude that should be concerning, and I don't think is reactionary to look at and say, there's some real things to be worried about here. Again, yeah, you and I both, I want to be patient. I do like I think the benefit of these last 2 games is we can just dispense with any pretense of playoffs, of competitiveness that way, and you can just go fully into, this is JJ McCarthy's time. Let's take all of the time that we need to develop and then and let him make mistakes and then see what happens. But the numbers are so dreadful that it is like, it's going to be, if they continue, it's going to be harder and harder to express patience for a whole lot longer when you're just at the very, very bottom of enormous sample sizes of quarterbacks who have come into the league and done this over the years.
Yeah, and there's really, there's patience for the young quarterback, which is paramount, but then you also have, a regime in Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell who, after this season, will be entering their 5th year not having won a playoff game. And ownership, which has only seen 2 playoff wins in 15 years. And so, yes, the patience that you have to have for a quarterback is there, but the impatience that lies in needing results is also there, and squaring those 2 things is a very difficult world to live in. Haven't even mentioned Justin Jefferson and where he's at in his prime and how much he wants to win first and foremost, but also has the standard of wanting to be a Hall of Fame player. So yeah, it's tough. And looking at some of the numbers, it is jarring. Seeing some of the names that he's hovering around. And again, certain statistics, they take into account the entire offense. And so it's worth mentioning the drops, the false starts, the offensive line really typically in years here, the offensive line just doesn't look like they are up for the challenge regardless of who is in there. So all of that stuff is important to mention. But really the most, the most notable aspect to me is you go back and watch J.J. McCarthy's press conference from Sunday night after the game, and I don't know if the word is defeated, but the emotion on his face like that, to have a young guy navigating everything in that place is the last. I mean, that's the last spot you want to be in if you're trying to maximize a guy's development. And that's, that's the one aspect of this thing that for me would be most jarring. It's like, how much emotionally is it going to take to overcome what this has been? And it's just hard right now to imagine. And I said this before last week, and we wrote this in the preview, John, that we do at The Athletic. Like, it's hard to imagine right now, week to week, that this just transforms itself magically. It's just hard to expect that when he is struggling to acclimate to the game speed, when his decision-making is murky, when he is focusing so much on minuscule mechanics detail, like expecting that to all of a sudden just click into place week over week, I think would be a little faulty.
What do you think it would take for him to just, for Kevin O'Connell to say, hey, look, let's sit you down for a little bit. And I don't know that I'm there. I think like probably the path forward is just to let him play all of this and get as much of a sample size as you can for the rest of the year and go in. But it got 2 points on Sunday where you just wondered if this was bad for him from a mental, psychological standpoint as well as physical. And not that you bench him for the rest of the year, not that you do that you never give him another chance, but that maybe he needs a little time to catch his breath and just watch from the sideline and then try and go back to it. I mean, there's all sorts of political ramifications, but we're getting to a point where it is like it's like, man, this kid is in way over his head and he's losing everyone by staying out there much longer.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to fathom that point coming with the next 6 games. I mean, the only places to me where that becomes a very realistic thought in the Vikings decision maker's mind is if the locker room is just at a place where they can't, move forward with what they're getting at that position right now. And I mean, Josh Metellus after the game was asked about JJ, and he's like, I think 9's playing great. Now, that was a wild comment for him to make. And I don't know, I mean, what do these guys really believe? But they have not publicly cracked it all in their belief for him. And if that were to change, I think that's where, like, it becomes a realistic conversation. The only other, avenue where that probably becomes realistic is if he's just putting himself in positions where an injury is incredibly likely. And, like, there are movements in the pocket, John, where he is climbing up so violently to his offensive lineman, and Micah Parsons is right there. And, like, you're just, I mean, me as a viewer, you're just worried that he's going to hit his hand on a helmet again or get his elbow hit or something like that. But, I mean, there's no question, like, this guy has shown a level of mental toughness. He showed it in the Bears game to be able to respond on that last drive. So you feel comfortable enough that he can overcome until it gets to a place at which, I mean, it's booze at home or the locker room, the receivers on the sideline being even more drastic in kind of their reactions. It feels to me like you got 6 games left. You got to see what you have to your bet. I mean, at the most, like, refined level as you go into an offseason where you're going to have to make a lot of decisions at a lot of places and smooth out a lot of cap situation. You got to really have an idea of what do we have right now and how does that dictate what we need to do at this position and everywhere else kind of moving forward. I mean, it's like this offseason will be that much of kind of an inflection point from a team building perspective if it continues to look like this the last 6 games.
All right, let's take a quick break. We're here talking Vikings with Alec Lewis. On the other end, on the other side of this break, we will get to all of the other stakeholders in this loss, of which there are many. So we'll be right back here in just a moment. All right, back here, John Krasinski, Alec Lewis from The Athletic, kind of detailing the grim nature of the game against the Green Bay Packers. And Alec, we had to talk the quarterback. We just have to. It's just such an important part of this. But what I do want to make sure does not happen is that everything falls at J.J. McCarthy's feet, because at the start of the season, this was absolutely billed as we have the perfect incubator for a young quarterback to come in. We spent a ton of money on the offensive line. We have the quarterback whisperer head coach. We have the weapons around him. We have a really good defense that's going to make sure we're not playing from behind. We have all of these things that are going to kind of come together to give J.J. McCarthy the best chance to be successful in his first season as a starter. And I would venture to say, Alec, that all areas have been incredibly disappointing. And let's just start firstly with the defense, because yes, they're playing a lot of snaps. Yes, they are. They're on the field a lot, probably wearing down as the game goes on. But at the same time, can you make one big play? And I'm not talking about forcing a punt. Can you make one big play to swing the momentum, to get your offense the ball in plus territory, to get the other team on its heels? And the answer so far has been absolutely not.
No, and it doesn't feel like there's enough speed and explosiveness on the unit. Like, that's just pretty clear. And the Vikings were pretty headstrong, it felt like, in the way that they designed what this defense would be. They invested a ton on the interior defensive line with older players who have been productive in the past. And those two guys in particular, Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, have not been game-changing players. They just haven't been. Jalen Redmond has been better than both of them throughout much of the year. And that bet on the interior meant that they were not going to invest in the secondary. And the secondary is a group of guys right now that just doesn't feel like they have the speed, the juice, the disruptiveness to make plays on the football. I mean, Josh Metellus, who was extended prior to the season, don't feel like he's been very reliable at all in coverage. Harrison Smith, it just doesn't feel like he's close to the ball frequently. And then Byron Murphy, who was paid a lot of money, does not have an interception this season. So that group overall, it just feels like the bet that they've made on the front has not paid dividends to a place at which it covers for the coverage. And then, I mean, even, stopping the run. Emmanuel Wilson is not the first guy to, look like an elite guy against the Vikings. Quinshon Judkins did. Kenneth Gainwell did. Bijan Robinson did. So, defensively, this was going to have to be a playmaking, havoc-creating unit. It has not been that. They've played valiantly in giving the Vikings chances in games, but it is nowhere near the top of the league unit and defense that it was probably, that it was envisioned that it was going to have to be for this team to be what it wanted to be.
Yeah, I think of a couple of plays in that Packer game, and Jordan Love made a couple really great throws, into pressure, like to find the safe routes and get it there. But I think a couple of those throws, as impressive as they were, hung in the air for a long time. And it's like, if you have playmakers on the back end of your defense, they are at least getting there and breaking it up. Maybe they're not picking it off, or they're making it a contested catch. And too often, in those, they just were 5 yards away, they were 4 yards away, and they were easy pitch and catch kind of situations. And it's just like that. That just cannot happen if you're going to be a team that says we are kind of leaders here. Like, there will be Vikings fans, and there will be probably people in the organization like, hey, we're not giving up that many points. We're not doing that. And it's true. Like, they're outside of the Chargers game and a few others, like, you're not getting gashed for like 35 points. But there is a huge difference from not getting gashed, from not being an embarrassment to being like a plus unit. And I just like they don't dictate the terms of engagement. They get run over. When they force a punt, it's like, yay! Like, no, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, that is what you're supposed to do. So, like, get a dang turnover and make something else happen and change the energy of the game. And they are not doing that at all.
And the word you use there, energy, that's the place I want. Like, there was a lot of consternation about Cam Bynum and his tackling and Jahmyr Gibbs in space, but it does not, and it has not felt, even going back to camp, like this unit is playing with the amount of joy and energy that they did last year. And can that be pinned solely on Cam Bynum? Like, that's not feasible and fair. But yeah, it's not been. I mean, they've been probably like a top 10 defense, and you needed this defense. I mean, maybe top 10, top 12. You needed them to be a top 3 defense. Like that was just the facts of it entering this season. And it's interesting. I'll go back and I think about training camp, and the defensive front dominated every day. Like, oh man, the front's dominating. Javon Hargrave. And at the time, you're like, maybe this front's just amazing. And that's how a lot of people talked about it, or maybe that's a reflection of your offensive line. And the way it's looked, it's much more the latter.
Yeah, it's a perfect segue to get into the offensive line, because I think there were certainly moments in the game where McCarthy held the ball too long and just did not get rid of it on time and in rhythm. And probably you're thinking, if you're Darrisaw, you're O'Neal, you're someone, you're like, okay, I've got to hold this guy for 3 seconds, and after that, okay, the ball is going to be out. That's it. And then you turn around and you're like, well, wait a minute, how have you not getting rid of it? But I mean, Micah Parsons absolutely destroyed Christian Darrisaw, and Parsons is an amazing player, but Darrisaw is your guy that's supposed to neutralize that. And he's just not healthy? Was it just a bad game? Like, what did you see there? Because, man, Micah had his way with the best offensive lineman on the team.
Yeah, I mean, the Christian Darrisaw situation this entire year has been interesting, to put it lightly, nicely. Early in the season, he's not playing, then he is playing, then he's taking himself out. You know, it's snap. They're negotiating the amount of snaps he's playing. He says he wasn't ever supposed to be back in a year's time, but that was never set as an expectation from the team. So it's just been a lot of back and forth. And then, in that game, in one of the early short yardage runs, someone lands, it looked like on his ankle or the back of his leg. He goes to the medical tent, then he comes back, then he plays, then he's not playing. And even when he was playing, to your point, John, like Micah Parsons had his way. And it reminded me a lot of the 2022 game against the Cowboys, where Christian Darrisaw, I believe, was concussed early in that game, but Micah Parsons had his way in that matchup. And when you're paying a guy, I believe his contract in full, if it were to be paid out in full, is like $100 million. He's one of the highest paid tackles in the NFL. You need him to put up a fight against the other elite guys. And he did not do that. And while there is part of me where it's like, he's still coming back from the compound, the ACL, the MCL, at some point you have to be the guy that was paid that amount of money, and he just hasn't been. And then when you go across the offensive line in full, there was a short yardage, the 4th and 1 run to Jordan Mason. Kingsley Enagbare, who is by no means an elite pass rusher or defender, squeaks right past Brian O'Neal on that key down. Ryan Kelly was bulldozed once by Micah Parsons. Will Fries, I don't think he's been healthy the entire year, but I don't think he's lived up anywhere close to what they're paying him from a guard perspective. And it just it has not felt like that unit. Really, Detroit was the one time this year where it feels like they really stepped up and met the challenge of what they were going up against. And whether that is a reflection of the talent, of the plan and the design offensively, of the coaching, it's just hard not to watch them as a unit and not come away feeling like you want more frequently with this group. And it's a tough place to be when that was the focal point of the offseason. That's where so much of the investment was made. It's difficult. And it makes it harder to evaluate JJ with it looking like how it's looked.
Yeah, I mean, when your center is getting bulldozed, like, and just landing on his back, like, I mean, it just can't happen. Like, it just cannot happen, especially, like you said, when you know that you have this young quarterback that needs just to be nurtured and protected and have everything set up for him, and they are failing him by doing that. I mean, he is certainly not acquitting himself well, but they are failing him up front by just not giving him the time that he needs to make the decisions and make the throws that he does.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. Like it's been for much of the year, and early on, it's injuries. It's Darrisaw's not back, so Justin School is in there, but I mean, Justin School was signed with the intent that he would be. You knew Christian Darrisaw was coming back from the injury, so. It's been tough in that regard. And the interesting thing is you go back and watch the tape a little bit. I mean, Aaron Jones is giving his body up in the hole there, trying to mitigate the interior pressure. And so, it's an interesting kind of spot to be in. I mean, but you could go throughout the rest of the offense. I mean, TJ Hawkinson's one of the highest paid tight ends in the NFL. And, I mean, I don't know what his statistics are. Adam Thielen was acquired in a pick swap and is dropping a pass on a quick game to the left side that just can't – and it's not the first time this year. So it's been problematic elsewhere, and anyone who wants to solely pin it on J.J. McCarthy is not being factual with how this thing has looked everywhere. And you could probably include the design in that conversation from just offensively from the coaching staff.
There was a stat, I texted it to you during the game of like the announcer said that the Vikings have the highest drop percentage of the last decade and across the league. And it's Thielen, it's Addison, it's Hawkinson. Like, everyone is dropping passes, and I know that he throws the ball hard, but it's not John Elway. Like, man, it's not Brett Favre. Like, every time that he puts a throw on the money, you have to catch it. Like, because you don't know what's happened in the next one. And so, I mean, that's just another case of, a bunch of people who are all underperforming, and is it unrealistic or is it unfair to say that you have to be perfect? It might be a little bit, but they have not been perfect. They've been roundly bad in a lot of these situations, and that's the real problem here.
And we haven't even talked about special teams. We've got, right. I mean, 2 weeks, against the Ravens, Miles Price is fumbling a kickoff in a critical moment. 2 weeks ago against the Bears, the return, Ivan Pace runs out of his gap on the return to set up the game-winning touchdown. Then yesterday, Jay Ward's blocked back into Miles Price, who for some reason is around the ball in a key moment. I mean, it's just – and Will Reichard's been great, and I thought Ryan Wright had the best game maybe of his career on Sunday, naturally, of course. But the amount of pivotal mistakes in that phase even make this even that much more difficult. Now, it's hard for me to square those mistakes when you have an undrafted rookie returner who nobody thought would ultimately be the guy. He ends up having to be the guy because Rondale Moore wasn't performing, and then Rondale Moore got injured. So he's in a spot that nobody really foresaw him being in, and so it's hard for me to square. I'm not that surprised he's making a mistake in a key moment on the road in Lambeau Field. So, it's you kind of pin yourself in a corner in how you look at this thing, whether you're focusing on JJ or a lot of the other aspects, and it's frustrating probably for folks listening to this as much as anyone.
One more break before we wrap up. We'll hear from Clamshell Beach Resort and the Minnesota Lottery. All right, lastly, Alec Lewis, Vikings beat writer for The Athletic, here on the Viking Update Show. I mean, the one other thing to get into is the play design. I generally liked the way that O'Connell tried to get things set up, tried to establish the run. But I mean, there's just every game there's something like, why in earth are you doing a tush push with TJ Hawkinson who cannot move? Like, he cannot move at all. And I would do it with Josh Oliver, do it with someone, who has actually some athletic ability right now, but Hawkinson has not shown any of that all year long, and that is the guy that you choose to put behind center. Put Jordan Mason behind center. Do something else than that, and those are the things that come up, and I hate nitpicking play call here, play call there, but those are the things that do come up that you say, man, Kevin O'Connell, for as smart as you are and as clearly like as good of a job as you've done offensively here in your time, like there are times where you shoot yourself in the foot, and that's another big one in a big spot that just didn't make any sense in the moment, and not whether it worked or not, it was going to be a bad decision to do that.
And, like, I get probably the original intent is we don't want J.J. McCarthy at his size with his injury history.
Fine.
Right. But, like, the last time they put T.J. Hawkinson under center was in Denver in 2023, and he pitched it to Josh Dobbs, and I think it was a fumble. And so you have proof.
And that was 4 injuries ago. Like,
right,
that was
right,
like...
Right. It's unsensible. If you want to do something creative, maybe do Wildcat and just have Aaron Jones back there and run it vertically. Or on 3rd and 1, just hand it to Jordan Mason, who has shown an ability to utilize his vision to make it work in short yardage. It's infuriating. Like, you should see your text messages probably look the same, but I've got my dad texting me on it. Yeah. I've got friends they're like, what is going on? And it's not the first time. So yeah, I mean, look, they are in a very tough position from a play design, play calling standpoint. There are a lot of things that they can't do because of the quarterback and what he's capable of. And so they're trying to minimize errors, turnovers as much as possible and attempt to win the game. But when you consistently there was an early play call where Kevin O'Connell said after the game, we gave JJ an option to throw it out wide instead of just running the football, and I got to be better. Like, at this point, you just have to streamline it as much as possible to, just commit to the run. Not every play needs to have a can run pass check. It's just, we can just call it and run it. And so, yeah, I mean, and I liked, they ran for 80 yards in the first half. Yeah. And then, you come out and you throw the football in the second half, and it's just, it's really, it doesn't feel like, I was trying to put this in perspective watching the game. It felt like the Packers, in terms of sticking to the run, like, that's what they want to do. Right. And it feels like with the Vikings right now, that's what they feel like they have to do. Yep. And I just don't know how sustainable of a winning path that is in this era of the NFL, where defenses are going to play too high. They're going to make you run the football, and it is incumbent upon you to gash them when they do that.
Yep, it feels like the entirety of Kevin O'Connell's existence here has been run the ball begrudgingly, like just as a sort of means to an end, as a necessary evil, whatever you want to use to describe it. And so there is not that mentality. That was the impressive thing from the Packers, because I'll be on, like, I don't think Jordan Love has progressed the way that anyone expected him to. They're okay at quarterback, and they're okay at receiver, but you get a guy who is just churning out yards, just chunk after chunk, and Matt LaFleur is just like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep giving this guy the ball, because all he does is go forward and move us down the field, and this is a game where we don't have to score 35 points. So let's just chew clock and do it. And I just don't think that that's in Kevin O'Connell's nature at all, even if they were having similar success. I don't know that that's the way that they would go with it.
No, I mean, that's just how it feels. It feels like I've always said this, like almost his best quality as a play caller is like, what coverage do we hunt and how can we beat that coverage with our design? And they've done when they've had requisite quarterback play, they have been one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL. And when you have an explosive on a drive, you are 6 times more likely to score points. So it's a sensible approach, but you have to have balance. And when you have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and defenses are committing way more to stopping the pass, you have to run them out of it. And that's part of the benefit of having these guys in general. Like, when they extended Justin Jefferson, I remember Kwesi Adofo-Mensah saying something of like, his presence does a ton for us in the run game because of the defenders it takes out of the box. And so if that's the case, you have to make defenses pay for that. And that will only help the passing game. So yeah, it's been a frustration for a lot of people for a long time, and I mean 4 years in at this point, almost through the fourth season. Like, at some point, it becomes less of just a frustration than just the reality of what we're seeing on a week-to-week basis.
Well, Alec Lewis, you got 6 games left, baby. Like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
You never know. I mean, things can turn. The cork can pop out of the bottle, and maybe things will come together, and that would be really cool to see. But it's a little dark down there right now. I hope you have a good week. I hope you get a little bit of a meal in on Thursday and have a good trip to Seattle. And we'll continue to listen to the Alec Lewis Show on Talk North as well. That's been going great. So appreciate you stopping by, and as Brad Childress used to say, coming down the hill and shooting the wounded after the game is over. So thanks for that, man.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's trying to find the positives anywhere we can take it. I get to go home and try to not think about Vikings football for a few days, and I'm not entirely upset about it. But no, thanks for having me. I'm not even gonna say it's fun. We got to do it. It's time. It's the types of times where you got to do it. But thanks, John. Appreciate it.
All right, this has been the Viking Update Show presented by Onyx Hunt, brought to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. Twill by Scott Dayton, Clamshell Beach Resort, the Minnesota Lottery. Thanks for all your support. Have a good, happy Thanksgiving, and we will talk to you next week.
And that'll do it for episode 131 of the Alec Lewis Show. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate you listening all the way through. Was really fun to catch up with John, who is the best. I'm beyond grateful to have him to work alongside him, really, because of the work he does, but also just to have him as mentor, someone to lean on when you're covering teams like this, for sure. So appreciate the conversation with him. Appreciate First Resource Bank for presenting the show, Unreal for sponsoring it. And with that, please, you guys have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy time with family. Don't spend too much at the table talking about the Vikings, or do. If that keeps you from other subjects and people can have fun with it, then you can do that too. But that'll do it for episode 131. Safe travels across the country. If you guys are flying to see family, enjoy it. Don't take it for granted. And we will talk to you very, very soon.